Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. It's Tuesday, May 21st, and this is episode 64. It has been quite a few weeks for this podcast. Did Austin Death Fest, interviewed Outer Heaven. Then I thought, man, if I could talk to anybody in the world at this point in time, who would it be? And Dark Throne had a new record coming out, so I thought it would be kind of crazy to talk to one of them. So I talked to Ted, and then I talked to Max Cavalera. Those are all available now. Thanks to everyone who has reached out about all those interviews. It's been a lot of fun. And I think I'm going to keep pursuing like top most desired big riff artists. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I got some pretty lofty, ambitious ideas for future guests. I'm going to use this episode to get caught up on emails. Obviously, the podcast schedule has been insane lately. The Big Riff schedule has been insane as well. Gearing up for an album rollout, which I haven't done in about a year. So it's fun getting back into that. So yeah, let's catch up on some emails. I'm also going to talk about a record that came out about a few weeks ago. Freeways. What's it called? Dark Sky Sanctuary. It's a great record. Kind of reminds me of the wonderful Hellas album that came out a couple of years ago. So we'll talk about that later. And for now, gonna get caught up on these emails. Paul, thank you for your patience, man. Got Paul from Canada here. Nate, been enjoying the festival rundowns you've been doing. You really got me hooked on Solitude Eternus. I'm headed to Manitoba Metal Fest this weekend. I guess this is now probably last weekend. Regional acts can be really special to local scenes. I love when you talk about the New Orleans and Texas bands that you dig. Keep that up. And Arkansas, man. To me, Arkansas has got some of the best as well. And that was really probably the most influential scene on my big riff energy. Manitoba Metal Fest has two particularly inspiring locals playing from where I'm from, Saskatchewan, that I'm excited to see. I thought I'd introduce you if you've not heard of them. Into Eternity is Stu Block's original band before he got hired on by Iced Earth and then shit on when the guitarist decided to role play Patriot. Oh yeah, that guy was a J6er or whatever, huh? They play progressive melodic tech death with depressive lyrics and are incredibly unique. Stu's vocal range stands alone and in my opinion is way better showcased in Into Eternity compared to Iced Earth. So we've got Into Eternity, Pain Through Breathing. Check that out. Here he is demoing the siren scream he does on Pain Through Breathing. Yeah, so if you look at Stu Block vocal lesson, you know what? I've seen that. I don't know if I've listened to Into Eternity, but guys, look on YouTube for a Stu Block vocal lesson. Legendary stuff. They've been broken up for over 10 years and will be reuniting for this festival and are playing with the original Scattering of Ashes lineup. A big shout out to Saskatoon thrash locals Untimely Demise. I think you'd like them. Matt Cuthbertson is a riff lord. So yeah, guys, check out Untimely Demise. The song is Idle Hands. This got me thinking that there are truly amazing musicians in metal that will never be known or totally forgotten about. Stu's story is a real bummer with what happened to Iced Earth. It was a big deal where I'm from that he got that gig. Are there forgotten musicians or bands that you know that you could talk about on the pod? Your New Year's advice to survive is something I've come back to a lot this year. I'm not going to share this personal stuff, dude, but our boy is going through it. I'm digging myself out and see light at the end of the tunnel. Is it strange to say that the riff on Bird People of Nordland is enough reason for me to live? I don't play guitar, but I purchased a guitar just to learn that fucking riff, even if it's the last thing I do. I hope you'll let me send you a video of me playing it when I can do it. It would mean a lot to me. Cheers, dude. Lots of big riff love from Canada. Paul. Yeah, so I asked Ted about that riff specifically, if it's the same one you're talking about. with the extra chugs every other time. He said he was thinking heavy metal, but also taking in lots of Norwegian folk music, as always. Bro, I could probably even tab that out for you and send it over. It's really not that difficult. That's a perfect beginner guitar riff, but it's super cool sounding, obviously. Yeah, thanks for the email, man. You're asking about forgotten or overlooked metal riffers, musicians, songwriters, whatever. You know, it's not metal, but I talk about Gene Clark on here a lot. That album, No Other, from the 70s. People knew Gene Clark from the Byrds. But to me, that solo album that he put out in the 70s is like on the level with anything that Pink Floyd ever put out or any of those other psychedelic sort of progressive introspective rock bands. And yeah, I just think he never, despite having been in the Byrds, and you know, the Byrds were like the American Beatles. Like they inspired everyone that came after them. Tom Petty, and you know, they were connected with like Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Neil Young and all those. Like they were the American Beatles. Despite that, I think Gene personally is still sort of overlooked and underrated. So if you haven't yet, listen to No Other by Gene Clark. It's one of the best records ever made. Another band that came to mind, speaking of Arkansas, I mentioned Arkansas earlier, Black Oak, Arkansas. Try and find them playing at the California Jam, 1973 or 4. They were like 3 guitar, Leonard Skinner meets backwoods, like scary shit meets like super Eastern spiritual philosophical. Yeah, they were every bit as good as any of those like other Southern rock bands. And Tommy Aldridge, that was kind of his first big gig, the drummer. Obviously, he would go on to play with Pat Travers and Ozzy and Whitesnake and everybody. Yeah, Black Oak, Arkansas. That's a band that should have been as big as Skinner. You know, I could see how the vocals would kind of throw people, but to me, they're very endearing. As far as metal, you know, as much as all of us in the underground worship guys like Wino or Kirk from Crowbar, Jimmy Bower, dudes like that, you know, people into underground music know those dudes. But to me, if there was any justice, like I've seen Wino play stuff on guitar that gave me the same goosebumps as like Jimi Hendrix or David Gilmour or somebody like that. I think as far as like the ability to express emotion through lead guitar playing, I feel like Wino should be as famous as Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page, you know. As far as big ass riffs, I think Kirk should be on the level of Metallica or something. As far as playing drums in the pocket and really putting your whole ass into drum parts, I feel like Jimmy Bower should be as well known as John Bonham or somebody like that. So from our perspective, being into underground music, it feels like, you know, maybe you wouldn't think that these guys are overlooked because obviously in our little niche community, we all love and respect them. But those are the kind of guys that come to mind. I feel like, yeah, I literally feel like Wino should be as well known and well respected as Jimmy Page. And it's one of those things, if you know, you know. We all love him and respect him to the utmost, but it's like the whole world should. And it's kind of weird how like there's just arbitrary things that happen that are divorced from the music or the riffs or the guitar playing itself. There's just this other arbitrary stuff that happens that might make somebody world famous, where somebody that's just as good or just as has just as much big riff energy or whatever you want to call it, they never become that well known. I'm going to get into that a little bit with this next question as well. We got Josh from Michigan. Hi, Nate. More questions for the podcast. This is a good one, dude. In-N-Out or Whataburger, and or all-time favorite burger? I'm interested to hear your take on that debate. More importantly, have you heard the Up on Stone album, Dead Mother Moon, that came out in January? I wasn't completely sold on their first EP, Where Wild Sorrows Grow. but the debut album has been in consistent rotation since release. Curious to hear your opinion on it. Excited to hear your new project as well. Eternal Hails from Michigan, brother. Yeah, there'll be new tunes coming out from this new project sooner than I realize. So hang in there. Upon Stone's fine. They're good. They strike me as, I wasn't going to even say this on here, but then I thought about Steve Albini and I'm like, no, I have to. And I hope nobody ever takes anything personally that I say on here. This is meant to be entertainment. It's meant to be fun, sometimes at my own expense, sometimes at the expense of others. And I hope nobody is thin-skinned about it. But I was talking about, it's kind of odd how the little industry pockets, the movers and shakers, will sort of arbitrarily decide certain things that are pushed or supported or hyped or pushed down people's throats or whatever. And this is nothing against Upon Stone at all. I like their music. They seem like good dudes. But this is a situation where, like, the powers that be or whatever, like the dudes on the team behind the scenes, are like literally telling these guys, you should grow your hair out, which is, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. And, if you go and look at pictures of Lamb of God when they were transitioning from like dudes that are working full time and also touring when they can into a band that's like touring all the time, you can kind of see the moment where they make the decision to go all in because they all start growing their hair out. And a lot of bands go through that little transition, and I think in this case, it's kind of more like these are hardcore dudes that are vaguely aware of like melodic death metal. Nothing against them, man. You don't come out of the womb listening to Deicide or At the Gates or whatever. But yeah, they sound to me like a band of hardcore dudes that are being told to grow their hair out to fit better with what they're doing. That's kind of what it sounds like. And there's like this real rally effort forming around the band, which is fine. I would rather that happen for a band that's playing good riffs and writing good, well-arranged songs rather than a band that's just like playing the same old boring ass one-note hardcore breakdowns and shit. So I think it's good that it's happening for a band like this, but it is curious to me. Let's take Majesties, for instance, who put out a melodic death metal album last year. To me, again, I don't dislike Upon Stone, but I think the Majesties thing sounds like dudes that have been listening to early In Flames, early At the Gates, like the real first wave melodic death metal stuff, maybe even like Heartwork, Carcass. That Majesties record sounds like dudes that have been listening to that for their whole lives, or at least for their whole, like, let's call it metal careers or whatever. Whereas like the Upon Stone stuff kind of sounds like dudes that discovered At the Gates through maybe like As I Lay Dying or Unearth or Black Dahlia Murder or something like that. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. I have my own personal preference, and you did ask, so I think they're good. But yeah, I kind of, dude, nobody's gonna tell me shit anymore after this one. But yeah, it sounds like a band comprised of hardcore dudes who are being told by their team behind the scenes that they need to grow their hair out. That's kind of exactly what it sounds like. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think maybe there's other bands that are doing it in a way where somebody like myself maybe resonates with it a little bit more, because I was the guy that was being told my whole teenage life that I needed to cut my fucking hair. That's what I grew up with, is like, cut your hair, get a job, all that shit. So it's kind of funny to me when a band is being told like, you need to grow your hair out. Like, man, I wish I had somebody tell me that. I did it anyway. What was the other question? In-N-Out or Whataburger? Dude, luckily I'm pretty hidden out here in the hills, out here in the woods. So it'd be kind of difficult for people to retaliate on me for this, but Whataburger fucking sucks. It sucks, dude. Maybe I've just been very unlucky with my experiences, and for the record, I live in Texas. Whataburger fucking sucks. Like every single time I've ever gone, I'm like, I'm not coming back here. I don't know. Somebody that's outraged by this, please take me to your favorite Whataburger or something so you can prove me wrong. But dude, it's literally just like, it's like blind allegiance to a political party or something. Whataburger fucking sucks. Everyone in Texas that says it's superior is just like in a fucking cult. They're just brainwashed. I've never had an In-N-Out burger that was bad. I've eaten In-N-Out in every state where it's at. And it's good every single time, and it's fast, and they're on top of it. And I've never been disrespected by any of the employees. I've never got the vibe that they don't even fucking want you in there, you know? And that's what I feel most of the time when I go to Whataburger. And then they give me some kind of sloppy, slimy fucking insult of a cheeseburger. So yeah, In-N-Out is superior. That's a silly goofball discussion. It's in a irrelevant debate. Fucking joke. As far as favorite burger, all right, I don't know if this is going to classify as a trip into the vault of insane stories, but it's like verging on that, because I was really taking this seriously, because this is a great question. This is one of the better questions I've got on here. And so I thought back to 2011 or 2011. I'm living in Santa Monica, California, believe it or not. And I lived literally right around the corner from the, what's it called? The Arrow movie theater? Yeah, I'll throw a picture up. Arrow movie theater. So you see in this picture, you got the theater. If you were to walk like towards the front of that vintage car and take a right on that corner, you would walk for 15 seconds and be at my house. I lived with a couple dudes, literally on the couch. Had some good times on this little street right here. But if you were to continue walking like past the vintage car, so towards the rear end of the car, and go down that street, on the left is a place called Father's Office. And I think when I was living there, there was only one location. They've expanded now. I think they've got locations like in LA proper. But you walk in this place, my buddy took me there who had been living in the area for a while. You go in, it's dark, it's tiny, it's cramped, it's a lot of old wood. And it's one of those places where it's like, you don't ask for the burger any kind of way. You don't ask for anything different. And I took a friend of mine there who I don't want to say is like firmly on some kind of spectrum or whatever, but let's just say he's like extremely OCD. And he's giving me a rundown of how he's going to get this burger and shit while we're on our way into the front door of this place. And I just looked at him and I was like, Nick, no, you're not. You're not fucking asking for this burger with ketchup. You're not fucking asking for this burger with no this or no that. Like, they will beat your ass and probably throw you out the front door. You're just going to take what they give you. And he did. And he was shocked. He was like very, I expanded his horizons. But yeah, you go in this place, you don't ask them for nothing special, period. You take what they give you, and it's the best burger I've ever had, for sure. Look it up. It's kind of weird. Like on paper, it sounds kind of weird, but easily the best burger I've ever had. And man, it got me reminiscent about that little period in my life, that Arrow Theater that I just put the picture up. I met John Carpenter there, borderline halfway, like in the wild kind of. I'll tell the story sometime. I can't remember if I've told it on here, but it got me thinking about like the whole time I lived in LA, there were 3 people that were halfway decent to me. One of them was a server at, I want to say PF Chang's, and come to find out she was from Oklahoma. The other one was John Carpenter when I met him, and he's from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And then the third person that was nice to me when I lived in Santa Monica, believe it or not, was Mel Gibson. I spent a little half day with Mel Gibson, and he was born in upstate New York. Also has dual citizenship, US and Ireland. I didn't realize that. So yeah, those were the 3 people that were decent to me the whole time I was in LA. sucked ass. Maybe I'll really dig into the Vault of Insane stories on that one. If you want to hear about my John Carpenter experience or my half day with Mel Gibson, write me bigriffenergy@gmail.com. But Father's Office, right there in Santa Monica, that's the best burger I've ever had. I also had a really good burger at Burger King in Germany, but I think it was like undercooked because it poisoned me. But God, it tasted so good. All right, Owen from Australia. Owen's got the Pitch of Discontent podcast that I've mentioned on here before. Hi, Nate. I hope you're well. Thank you for your kind words about me and my podcast back in episode 50. It truly means a lot coming from you, as you're one of the people I respect the most in this crazy and tumultuous music business thing we often begrudgingly find ourselves doing. You're an endless source of creative inspiration. So again, I really do appreciate the shout out. Man, I feel the same way about you. That's one of the most prepared, like, best energies of a, you know, you inspired my vibe, believe it or not, when I'm interviewing guys like Ted from Dark Throne or Max Cavalera. It can be a little bit intimidating. And I thought your questions were so fresh and inspiring in a way. So thank you for inspiring me to try to do a better job with those guys. Okay. One, I put off watching episode 58 on the worst metal bands of all time for a week or so, but I have to commend you for the most excellent bait and switch. I was mid-meal when that section started and I had to stop eating because I was laughing so hard. Even my dog was shocked. But seriously, I completely agree with your thoughts on negativity bias, clickbait, and the general culture surrounding negative/dunking criticism. While I certainly enjoy the occasional creative skewering, it's not something I have any interest in with my show or my music writing. Mainly because, as you point out, there's already so much good shit out there in the world that doesn't get covered. I'd much rather use what little time and energy I have in this fleeting period of existence to build a communal sense of positivity and uplift over shit talking and rage bait. So, tip of the cap to you, sir. For those of you who don't know, he's referring to the episode where I tricked you all. You're all clickbait fucking suckers. You should be ashamed of yourselves because it actually did work. I've done so many episodes titled greatest thing I've heard in forever, you know. And as far as like just the regular episodes of the show that aren't interviews with Max Cavalera or aren't top 10 lists or whatever, the two most watched are when I called the people who invented baby metal child predators, which isn't like, I didn't even do that for clickbait. I actually do feel that way. But the one that's even more watched than that is this fake out where I was like, these are the worst metal bands ever. I did the same stuff every other douchebag, poser, asshole, weak, riffless motherfucker on social media does to get views, but I didn't actually do it. I just talked about stuff that I liked. But you all fell for it. If you watch that just trying to get riled up and rage, you should literally like take a whip and whip yourself in the back 100 fucking times because it's pitiful. Okay, what's the fuck? Well, there's no question there. I guess that's it. Two, I wanted to send you a single I received in my inbox last week. It's from a band called Lowen out of the UK, and they have a new record coming out through Church Road. The album is titled Do Not Go to War with the Demons of Mazandaran. And the band described their sound as crushing progressive doom steeped in the history of the ancient Middle East and the empty vistas of space. So yeah, check them out. What are they called? Lowen. They're all right. I like the riffs, the production, too like, I don't know, too digital or sparkly. And the vocals, I think it was intentional, but they're a little like repetitive. I think she's going for like a Eastern like mantra kind of thing, but it just wasn't. I don't know. Check out Lowen, see if you guys like it. It just wasn't quite doing it for me. I think, yeah, the typical offenders, and dude, Dark Throne Ted said the same thing. He's like, so many records I want to like, but it's like the production just stops me. For me, it's usually production and or vocals. But the music sounded good. And I think I'm just kind of like broken when it comes to that. So you guys, a lot of you would probably like it. Lowen, Lowen. Here are other quick points to note. I'm glad you enjoy that new Severus LP. It rips. I'm also interviewing Brett from Pallbearer for my show this morning, which will come out in a few weeks. And their new record, Mind Burns Alive, is phenomenal. I assume you've likely heard it and or have something planned for them for Big Riff Energy, but it's already an album of the year contender for me. Take care and talk soon, Owen. Dude, this is the first Paul Bearer record that I haven't heard like months in advance. I don't know why. I think it's just life, getting older, getting busier. They've been super busy. I've been super busy. I'm actually recording this episode on Friday, May 17th, because my schedule has heated up so much. So I need to like really give this thing an honest to God proper listen. I've been hearing nothing but good stuff. They played a new song when we played with them last year that I loved, was really feeling it. And so, yeah, I'll check it out. You know what? That tour they're doing with Inter Arma, the last 2 shows are Austin and Houston. And this home, the Big Riff headquarters, where I now sit, is positioned strategically perfect distance between Austin and Houston for touring bands. No bands have stayed with my wife and I more than Paul Bearer and Inter Arma. So I need to talk to them and just like put the hammer down that no one has a choice and that both bands are staying out here between the, I think it's in August, between the Austin and Houston date. And we can do an episode with like everybody. Hopefully, if they're not fucking, if y'all aren't scared, come on with it, dude. No, I'm going to reach out to them and I'm sure I'll talk about that record when I have a chance to give it a proper listen here. Dan. Hi, Nate. I haven't written before, and now I'm starting with a sentimental email right off the bat. I wanted to thank you for all the amazing work you've put into the Big Riff Energy podcast, whether it's reviews, band analysis, or the recent interviews. It's all fantastic stuff. We're born in the same year, and it sure looks like we have a ton of music in common as well. The Max Cavalera interview was fantastic, and even though the video footage got lost, I absolutely felt the love that you put into it, both as a creator and as a fan. I was getting teary-eyed at the end there, to be honest with you. One last thing I wanted to do is, if you listen to or like the band Worm from the US, they have a super nice blend between black and doom metal, which you might appreciate. I recommend their Star Path split to start off. Sounds more like something put out during the 90s, but more up-to-date sound-wise. Foreverglade is also top-notch, leans more toward the death metal side. If you do end up liking them, maybe you might like to have an interview with the singer. He seems like a passionate and respectful fellow from what I've seen. Keep up the riff energy, Dan. Yeah, I like Worm. I'm honestly just like fried on that kind of death metal, but I think they're clearly one of the better ones. You know, I would put them in the same category as how I feel about like Severus. Like, it's very interesting. It's cool. I love clean guitars and heavy guitars going at the same time. Yeah, the lead guitar work in Worm is like mind-boggling. Like, it's up there with, you know, King Diamond, Andy LaRocque type lead guitar. Really classic stuff. Yeah, as far as guests, man, I'm kind of like, there's a 2-pronged approach here. I'm actively pursuing guys sort of in the background, and clearly, like, you know, started with somebody that I thought was a little bit fantastical with the Dark Throne interview, and that worked out. And then so I stepped it up from there, went for Max, and that worked out. So you have to assume I'm trying to go even, you know, loftier, more fantastical type of guests. So I actually reached out to somebody's publicist yesterday that I was even like laughing after I sent the email. Like, there's no fucking way this is going to happen, but you never know, dude. So I've got people I'm actively pursuing. But that being said, if anybody wants to come on here, please feel free. Reach out to me, bigriffenergy@gmail.com. And I also want to, as far as the interviews, I'm trying to put effort into talking to my friends that are in good bands and getting them a little more exposure. Like, as epic and amazing as the Max interview and the Ted interview were, I loved the Outer Heaven interview just as much, if not more. I mean, that was so much fun, and that band's so good. So yeah, if you want to come on, feel free to reach out to me. If you're a publicist and you have bands with stuff going on, I've sort of started to connect with publicists more in like and like the proper channels as if I'm like actually some kind of journalist, which was never my intention with this. I hope nobody forgets that my number one purpose and my number one like pursuit in this life is making big riffs. I hope y'all didn't forget. And you'll be reminded before too long. But yeah, I'm kind of digging myself into a hole with this thing. I like getting plugged into channels as if I were some actual respectable journalist, which is like fucking hilarious to me. Oh man, dude, and losing the Max video, my God. I didn't lose it. Zoom just like, I don't know what happened. I clicked the thing. We heard the sound is even on the audio recording in progress. But it got a little bit weird. And I was looking at it and I looked and the red light was on Zoom that says recording. And I checked it. Like I was shitting my pants doing that interview, man, because I thought the power was going to go out because of the thunder. And I checked that recording light like 1,000 times. And yo, when I realized that Zoom recorded 4 seconds and I was like I was just refusing to accept that was reality. I felt some bad feelings in life. I've had my nose shattered by cooked out, roided up frat boy headbutting me. I've been punched in the liver by a trained boxer. I've gone through alcohol and benzo withdrawals at the same time, which are the two worst ones you can go through. Had family members die, pets die. Yo, I'm not kidding. Realizing that Zoom didn't record that video was a similar feeling. I'm not going to say it was as bad, but it was just like, I felt like I got punched in the stomach, man. But it came out cool. And thanks to everybody that's been reaching out with nice things to say about the Cavalera interview. That was a big deal for me, man. I'm a perfectionist. And that doesn't mean that things have to be perfect. It just means I have a very high expectation for myself. Whether that's riffing, songwriting, talking to these guys that I respect so much. And the last thing I want to do is waste somebody's time that has put in so much time into the big riff lifestyle. So I don't know. I think it came out fine. Everybody seems psyched. I thought the Cavaleras were going to be fucking disgusted and disappointed with me, and I don't think they were. So it's all good. Somebody asked me about this album, Freeways, Dark Sky Sanctuary. It came out last month. Guys, I'm begging you. What Steve Albini had that shirt said, I am begging you to stop emailing me. I need to get one made that says, I am begging you to stop putting questions that you want me to answer in the comments. Email me. It weeds out the lazy fuckers that don't want to fucking leave YouTube. It's the easiest thing in the world just to troll on YouTube and say some dumb shit. But for some reason, opening up another app or, yeah, having to type out an actual like email, which I hate to say that emails are old school now. That's weird. But yeah, please email me. I don't have time or desire to read all the comments. I try to stay connected with those of you who are cool, and everybody else, I just banish you into the void for eternity. But I'm going to talk about Freeways, Dark Sky Sanctuary because I remember somebody bringing it up, and I liked it. I listened to it yesterday. I'm talking about my listening habits here. Obviously, I have like a vinyl setup in here. I try to force myself to listen to vinyl, but it's easier said than done. But I've developed a technique that forces me to listen to music every day. A lot of what I do to keep the lights turned on and stuff involves like emailing and sending messages and doing stuff on the computer. Fortunately, most of that stuff you can do on your phone now. So I have these woods out back where I made all these trails and shit. And every day when it's time to, I guess, clock in, instead of sitting here on my ass with my bad spine, doing emails and all that stuff, put in some earbuds and go out in the woods and walk or jog or run and do my emails and all that shit. And I'll be listening to albums while I'm out there. And I might be out there an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And a lot of times I'm waiting for like responses or waiting for things to happen. So I'll just put the phone in my pocket and I'm just listening to albums running. So yeah, it's we get older, we get busier. It's like you have to really force yourself to stay plugged in. You know, I talked to Max about that too. But this Freeways album, I like it a lot. I was listening to it yesterday, doing exactly what I just described. And, you know, the first thing that came to mind was Halas. Their last album, Isle of Wisdom, is like definitely my favorite album of the decade, but really one of my favorite, like, hard rock, proto metal, progressive rock, you know, AOR type of things ever. And I believe that Freeways toured with Halas in the States the last time they were over here. I think these guys are from Toronto. And so it's in that wheelhouse. Yeah, some of the most important music that I've ever experienced in my life was the stuff that was syndicated on classic rock FM radio between like 2002 and 2006. That's when I'm like 14 to 18 years old. And specifically 103.3 The Eagle in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's the station that was reaching us in Bartlesville. I started driving when I was 15. No license, no permit, because that's how the dude that taught me to drive started doing it, 15 years old. And yeah, I was listening to CDs. There were CDs that I would listen to every day. Pentagram, First Days Here, Agents of Oblivion, self-titled, October Rust, stuff like that. But I was also listening to FM classic rock radio, even before I could drive. My first girlfriend was like a year older than me, so we would drive around, listen to Boston, Blue Oyster Cult, Tom Petty, Ozzy. I've talked about it a million times on here. Scanner, CCR, all that kind of stuff. And Freeways definitely gives me that vibe. I like it a lot. Track 2 in particular is pretty much Burning for You in the verses, which is cool. You know, the best song from that last Halas record, Earl's theme is pretty much Eye of the Tiger. So nothing wrong with it. I ain't hating. And in fact, when I was listening to the second song on this album, I forget what it's called. Let me bring these guys up. Freeways, Dark Sky. Yeah, the verses are straight up. Can't Deny Destiny. It's got a little bit of like bordering on the Police. I hate the Police, like specifically the band. I can't. It's like, what kind of federal agent would name their own band the Police, first of all? But it kind of gives me that, like, yeah, Blue Oyster Cult, Burning for You. Like, do I hear reggae in there? But it's not so far into reggae that it makes me throw up on my shoes. And in fact, yeah, Can't Deny Destiny is track 2 on this album. There's some things they're doing on it that remind me of stuff that I was doing on I Shall Return from the last Spirit Adrift album, which makes sense because that song was my attempt at like distilling everything that I heard on FM classic rock radio into one song. And Burning for You specifically, I have like a core memory attached to that song of just like core powerful teenage feelings. That's one of my favorite songs ever made, but so many of those FM rock songs are, and that's really kind of how I learned to like arrange songs and stuff like that. So Freeways is definitely tapping into that. There's like a spectrum where they reside. I would say like the chillest moments of Blue Oyster Cult, or like maybe even like Boston or something like that, is on one end, and on the other end you have a song like track 3, Give 'Em the Gears, which I would say is like the chuggiest end of like Thin Lizzy, maybe a little bit of Motorhead. And this song super reminds me of The Prince by Diamond Head from Lightning to the Nations. You want to talk about overlooked bands, man. Diamond Head, to me, like Lightning to the Nations is the best new wave of British heavy metal album by far. And no one would know who they were if it weren't for Metallica covering their songs. And again, like, people in the metal world know Diamond Head, but I feel like they should be as well known as Metallica if you're just basing it on how kick-ass the riffs and the music are and the vocals. But yeah, track 3 on this Freeways album reminds me of The Prince by Diamond Head, which is a good thing. Title track, if I have a gripe about this album, and please don't let this stop you from checking it out, the music and the production is really great, and if there's anything that's like maybe not as powerful as I wish that it could be, it's the vocals. And not necessarily, it is a delivery a little bit. I feel like something about Hellas, a band like Hellas or a band like Graveyard, that makes them so great is that the vocals are like really special. They're not just there. There's like something really exciting and interesting and soulful about them. And the vocals on this, they're just not quite there for me. And the title track is kind of a good example of what I'm talking about. And part of it is, you know, as lyricists and as singers, we want to say like really profound stuff. Or if you're worth a shit, you want to say really profound stuff. You have something to say. And the trick of it is to take a complex idea or maybe a complex paragraph or something that when you're really writing out your deepest feelings and thoughts. And how do you take a lot of words and a lot of syllables and make it sound cool? Make it rhyme, but not just make it rhyme. Like, it needs to really sound cool. It needs to sound like another instrument, and it needs to have like the sound of the actual words and the way the words fit together. It needs to have like a hooky element to it. And I think the person singing has a lot to say here, which is great. But to me, it gets a little clunky. The lyrical delivery gets a little clunky, and the vocals maybe aren't as powerful as it could be because there's like too many syllables going on. But all things aside, I feel like this is a great album. The song Traveling Heart actually reminds me a lot of Robin Trower. So respect. If you guys haven't heard Robin Trower, here we go. Here's another guy completely overlooked. Go listen to the album Bridge of Sighs. First 2 songs on that, I mean, it's as good as any guitar player that's ever lived, for sure. And I know he was a big influence on the New Orleans guys as well. I think Down actually has done like a semi cover of Bridge of Sighs, the title track. But yeah, this song Traveling Heart, track 5, kind of reminds me of Robin Trower, maybe Graveyard from Sweden, like the Hisingen Blues era, the best era. Maybe Blood Ceremony a little bit. Have you heard them? Or how do you say it? You got to say this one with a lisp, I guess. Jex Thoth. Remember that? Self-titled Jex Thoth album? That shit's great. Yeah, so I love this a lot. I just think like the lyrics and the vocals could be a little bit more refined. And honestly, that's my only criticism. It was making me feel really good. I love the album art. It's a vibe, man. It's really, really, really good. I'm glad to hear bands writing meaningful songs and cool riffs and harmonies and singing about meaningful stuff. Like, my gripes about the vocal delivery aside, at least we have a band here that's saying something meaningful and profound, which I feel like is so lacking in modern music. I think that covers it all, man. Yeah, write me at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. I think I'm finally caught up on the paid skis. If you want your question moved to the front of the line, description, check it out. You can see how you can do that. I'm getting the dog on here next month. I'm working on other guests in the meantime, sort of. I'm honestly kind of dialing this back a little bit while the music stuff is picking back up, because as much as I love this podcast and connecting with you guys, the music is the most important thing, man. But if you guys have questions, I'll get to them. I'm still going to, no matter what, I'm going to crank one out a week. You know, this has been a really cool way for me to have a very concrete commitment while I'm grounded from touring. Momentarily, a self-imposed grounding from touring, which has been great. But the war machine is cranking back up, man. But yeah, that said, I can do one a week. I can handle that. And stay tuned, man, because the last guest that I emailed is like insane. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see. And I have others. I have some really cool stuff in mind. If you got questions for J-Dog, send them. It's going to be a while till we do that, but I feel like that's going to be a lot of fun. I have a very fun strategy in mind for that. And I guess that's it. Yeah. Check out Freeways, Dark Sky Sanctuary, and all that other stuff we talked about. Check out the Outer Heaven interview I did. Check out the Nocturno Culto interview I did. Check out the Max Cavalera interview I did. And I'll see y'all next week. Cheers. Much love.